so much for joining us to So You Want to Be a Doctor with Julian and Elyse. Julian's an experienced mentor and college admissions counselor with more than 8 years of expertise guiding students and families through the admissions process. In addition to his work supporting hundreds of students in gaining admission to universities nationwide, Julian has served as an admissions reader for the University of California, giving him valuable insight into what makes an application stand out. And Elyse is a dedicated educator who brings both academic excellence and a passion for storytelling to her work with students. A graduate of Northwestern University, where she studied psychology with a concentration in neurobiology and global health. Elyse went on to score in the 92nd percentile on the MCAT before pursuing opportunities in public health and media abroad. Julian and Elyse, it is nice to have you this evening, and I will let you guys take it away.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much, Lauren. So what we're going to do today, I just wanted to give a very quick overview of kind of what's going to happen in today's webinar. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to go over do an overview of a career in medicine, and then we will jump onto the road to medical school. We'll take you through all of the stops and the left and the right turns. Then we'll go into the medical school requirements, followed by choosing a pre-med program, and then we'll go into the combined undergraduate programs, kind of giving you some insight into what's out there, especially when you're applying as a senior. And then we will go into our Q&A. So without further ado, I am going to pass it off to the fabulous Elyse so we can go over the overview.
Well, thank you, fabulous Julian. All right, everyone. Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. So let's start off with the basic question: to be or not to be a doctor? Do you actually want to be a doctor? And I know that sounds really basic. However, people often get really far in this process before they actually ask themselves if they want to be a doctor. When you are smart and you care about people and you're in high school, it is really easy to just get lumped into being pre-med, because that is what you do. It's also a tangible career that you've seen it on TV, you've had experiences with doctors, you know what it looks like. So it can seem like a great thing to grab onto. But there's a couple questions that I want you to think about. I want you to think about, do you love school? If you do love school, then great. Amazing. You are on the right path. When you think about being a doctor, what are the things that you think you might love about it? Do you think about patient care? Do you think about solving puzzles? Do you think about research? All of these might point you in different directions. We'll talk about all that really soon. Do you have an interest in having a lifelong career in learning? If you view school as a thing to be done with, this might not be the path for you. Also, have you worked in medicine? Have you been in a medical environment? Do you like being in a medical environment? Are there ways for you to try to do that? We'll talk about that. Also, what do you currently like about school? What are the things that you look forward to? If you routinely dread all of your math and science classes, unless you have all really bad teachers or teachers with like very thick German accents, which that's not weird. All of my science courses for a time were all taught by teachers with very thick German accents. So, if that's the mitigating factor, great. But if there's something else, take a look. Hey, Julian, let's move to the next slide. Okay. When I was in high school, I wish I had known that being a doctor can mean so many things, can look so many different ways. So on the left here, we have not all the various, but a couple different examples of different types of specialties, right? You've got pediatricians, neurologists, dermatologists. This is just a brief smattering, but what you specialize in can change the way your workday looks. In addition, there are many places where you can practice. You can work in a hospital. You've seen that in any TV show. There's also a plethora of degrees that you can get, right? You can get an MD, MBA, and you don't have to have your own practice. You don't have to have an MD, MBA to manage your own practice, excuse me. But you might need that if you want to be the CEO of a hospital or run a large corporate entity. That might be helpful for you. MD and PHs, they are doctors who also split their time between patient care and research. When I was In college, I got to work for an MD MPH. I was in his neurobio lab. We were studying, basically, we were developing a drug that was Tylenol for the brain. So it would reduce inflammation in the brain after traumatic brain injury. Very, very cool stuff. If you are interested about patient care, but also what the cutting edge could be, that might be something for you. You can work abroad with organizations like Doctors Without Borders. That is with the Global Health and Public Health branch. Doctors Without Borders is currently working in 70 plus countries around the world in various humanitarian organizations. Global health in general, we just went through a global pandemic, so public health experts were at the forefront. People can work for the CDC, they might be in the field, they might be collecting data or studying large populations. That's another area to go. And then finally, you could get an MD-JD, which is a medical degree and a law degree, so you really love school. And these people, these wonderful nerds, can help influence policy. They might practice law, they might be in medical malpractice cases. Lots of avenues there. So your medical career could have any of these. The options are endless. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. Just to offer you a couple more options. I know we're here to talk about being a doctor, but did you know there are other options as well? Many high schoolers don't know that there are these other degrees or other professions in healthcare that might play to your strengths or your interests a little bit more. So if you're like, doctor, but doctor doesn't quite feel right, maybe consider one of these. So the first one I want to talk about is the doctor of osteopathy. This is the most similar to an MD. So an MD is a medical doctor, right? A doctor of osteopathy can also see patients, can also prescribe, can also do surgeries. It's just that your medical training looks a little bit different. It's, in theory, a bit more of a holistic training. There's an emphasis on spinal manipulation like a chiropractor. But DOs and MDs will often work side by side. DOs might also be more common in things like sports medicine as well. Physician's assistants. So for a while, because most doctors were going on to specialize, there was a lack of primary care physicians. So to fill that gap, I was part of it. I was not part of it. There was created the role of the physician's assistant, which was to provide primary care. We're going to talk about the physician's assistant educational track in a little bit. But if you're really just passionate about people, but the length of schooling seems crazy to you, think about the physician's assistant role. Similarly, nurse practitioners. This role was originally created because there were nurses that would have years and years and years of practice, and because of all their years of practice, they were sort of like doctors, where they were like, I can see that diagnosis. I know exactly what that patient needs. So for these nurses, there was created the nurse practitioner. So it's a 2-year master's program. And now you can just go straight. So if you wanted to get your nursing degree, you get your RN, which takes 4 years, and then an additional 2-year master's degree to be the nurse practitioner. And you can also then see patients and prescribe. Both physician's assistants and nurse practitioners work underneath a supervising medical doctor. You have an occupational therapist, slightly different. So occupational therapists are people that help you. You might help a stroke victim learn how to feed themselves again. You might help somebody regain the ability to walk after a bad accident. Oh, that's a little more physical therapy. Physical therapy is a little bit more like use of your limbs, and then occupational therapy is about more day-to-day activities. Can you feed yourself? Can you drive? There's even things for mental health. So with severe ADHD, can we organize you enough to pay your taxes? That can be things like occupational therapy. Physical therapists, any of you athletes out there may have had encounters with physical therapists. If you love patient interaction and you also like seeing things start to finish, physical therapy might be something to look at. It's now required a doctorate. It used to be just a master's, so now they are also doctors of physical therapy. But one thing that people tell me that's really rewarding is that they get to spend a lot of time with their patients and they get to see them fully recover. So that's really cool. You mean a psychologist. PhDs technically specialize in research. PsyDs are technically usually people that specialize in therapy. You can also do a 2 years master's degree and be a therapist and see clients. The pay is not as much as the PsyD psychologist, but there absolutely are many roles. We will not talk about it here, but many roles for therapists. And then finally, if you're like, people kind of suck, I'm not into it, consider being a vet. There's always a large cohort of every pre-med class that goes, oh, I don't want to deal with people. And then they got to go take an extra microbiology class and get themselves set up for veterinary school. So think about those. Julian, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so for those of you that still want to be a doctor, this is what you're looking at. Okay, cool. Pay attention. If you are looking at this and you're like, oh, awesome, this is the next 17 years of my life. Cool, it's all mapped out for me. Then like, great, then wonderful. Then that's another green flag. If you look at this and you feel like the walls are closing in, that's okay, but pay attention to that. Because you might want to take breaks, you might want to take a gap year, or you might want to consider the PA track that we'll talk about later. So for those of you that are high school seniors, if you're in the fall of 2025, you'll graduate and hopefully you'll start freshman year of college in the fall of 2026. You would apply, the earliest you could apply to medical school would be 2029. You'll start medical school in the fall of 2030. You'll graduate medical school and apply to residencies in 2035. And we're going to say the average length of residency, it could range from 3 years to 7 years, depending on the residency, but let's say call it 3.5. So you'll finish with that in 2038. You'll do a 2-year fellowship and you're done in 2042. Although not done because we said lifelong learning, but you're done with your training in 2042. Yeah. But you have a path, which is great. Julian, let's try the next slide. Okay, so if you're freaking out, here's the physician's assistant journey. So as you can tell, instead of 17 years, it's 10 years, which is better, right? It's better. So senior in high school, fall of 2025. You're starting college next year in the fall of 2026. Junior and senior year, you're taking the GRE and doing your PA school applications. The earliest you would start PA school would be the fall of 2030. It's a 2-year program. My friend that became a PA was like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest 2 years of my life. It is 4 years of medical school crammed into a 2-year master's degree. And it was really, really hard, but she did it. It's a crazy hard 2 years. You have a 1-year internship, and then you're ready to practice. Because the PA role has sort of exploded in the last 10 years and there's more and more PAs, there are increasingly opportunities for PAs to start specializing, and that is typically a 12 to 18-month fellowship. Most PAs are still doing primary care, which is what that role was originally created to fill. But there are also PAs that are helping in surgery, that are doing psychiatry, there are PAs in almost every specialty. So there's more opportunities to specialize. But then you're done in 2035. And if you're like, oh, the next 10 years, that feels better. But if you're still panicking, that's okay. That's okay. Just notice that. Julian, let's go to the next slide. So I think something that's helpful to know, med school. Everyone says you want to get into med school. So what does med school actually look like? Is it something that you want to do? Maybe that can help you decide if this is something that you want to do for yourself. So your first year is preclinicals. Your first 2 years are generally preclinicals. This is sort of your hard sciences on steroids. Your back 2 years are your clinical rotations. At the end of your second year, when you're done with all that hard science, is when you're going to take the USMLE Step 1. When people talk about their board exams, that's the USMLE. It's the US Medical Licensing Exam. There's 3 parts to it. So at the end of the second year, you'll take the first part. The third year is when you begin those rotations. There's a core rotation that everybody has to do, and then you can pick and choose some extra ones. And then you will also finish taking your boards your third year. And that's important because you'll need those scores to apply for residency. And your fourth year will be focused on pursuing the residency options that you prefer. And there will be a match day, usually in March. And that day, it's announced where everybody's going, where you placed into residency. There are sometimes medical students that don't place into residency and they need to find an internship and do another year and then apply the next year and hope to get placed in a residency program then. So that is what you're looking at, those 4 years. Let's see, what's our next slide, Julian? Okay, great. So we've talked about the overall path to becoming a doctor. We've talked about what med school looks like. So great, you're like, I want to be a doctor, still want to do it. Great. So what do you have to do to get into medical school? On the right here, we have your medical school, your pre-med requirements. Somebody asked what the pre-med requirements were, so I'm glad we had a slide dedicated to this. So you're gonna have to do 1 year of chemistry with a lab. Lab is super fun. You're gonna have to do 1 year of biology with a lab, 1 year of organic chemistry with a lab, which is honestly the most fun. 1 year of physics with a lab, which I don't know, I think kind of sucks. But if you're a math nerd, it's great. It's amazing. A semester of biochem. You need a psychology course, a course in statistics, and then you need to take math through calculus. Something I think that's important to know for those of because pre-med students are often very smart. People wonder if their AP Bio and AP Chem will be enough for medical school requirements, and it is not. AP Bio and AP Chem are considered intro to biology at the college level. So what they want you to take is the next level up from that. It's also advisable to take a sociology class, especially if you're thinking about working with any disadvantaged populations, underserved populations. A sociology class can be really helpful. It's recommended to take an English composition class. If you are interested in research, you'll need to be writing grants. You might want to be publishing papers, right? Whatever you do, you're gonna have to be doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing. So an English composition class is great. And then you'll need letters of recommendation and you'll need to submit an official copy of your MCAT score. On the left here, before we move on, I want to make a quick point that being pre-med does not mean that you need to major in a science. So this is the breakdown of medical applicants last year by major, and you can see that over 50% of them were biological sciences majors. So I ask you, if you are applying to med school as yet another bio major, are you standing out? Probably not, right? So if there is another interest that you have, philosophy, math, honestly, theater. I do know somebody who's currently working at Emory Hospital who was theater in pre-med. You are often, it's much easier to catch the eye of the medical school admissions team. Statistically, it doesn't seem to make a difference there's still about half of all of these were admitted by major. But if you have another interest very strongly, then I would suggest that you do your pre-med coursework, do really well, and also pursue that other interest. They want to know that you're passionate because it is a long, hard road. And so they would prefer that you study something that you're passionate about and let that passion shine through on your med school application. And then let's see, Julian, I think this is where I hand the mic to you for a little bit.
Okay, well, that was fabulous. Thank you so much, Elyse. Amazing, amazing. So what I wanted to jump in quickly here is kind of just jumping off what Elyse was just mentioning is STEM majors versus a non-STEM major. So as she just mentioned, you don't necessarily have to major in biology or something related to the sciences to get into medical school. sometimes it is about catching the eye of those readers, and you want to really make them see like you're passionate about something, but you don't really want to kind of lump yourself into the same crowd. So I put in here is what it would look like to be a STEM major, so something like neurobio at UC Berkeley. You have, as you saw before, all of the requirements that Elyse was mentioning. So calculus, chemistry, organic chem. Does not sound the most exciting to me, but hey, to each their own. And then you have biology, you have to take your physics, and then your upper division courses, which are just those, you're getting more in depth with neurobio, getting into the more specifics. Electives, English and statistics, 72 units, and you get 1 degree. And then on the flip side, you have the BA in acting, and same thing for UC Berkeley. So we have your lower division requirements, upper division courses, and then what you have to do on the side is you have to start taking those pre-med courses. So you have to start taking the bio, the chem, the physics, biochem, and so forth. Now, what you end up with is you have a little bit, you have a few more units, not bad, but you have your degree and you're prepared for pre-med. So it seems like a lot of extra work, but in reality, it really isn't, because something just to think about at, for example, the UCs or at any college, you're going to be required to take general education courses. And a lot of times, these pre-med courses will fulfill some of the general education requirements that you need. So for example, if you're taking biology, you're going to fulfill maybe a requirement like scientific inquiry. So you might be taking a little, it might seem like you're taking some extra classes, but in reality, a lot of them are going to start to overlap, and you're going to fulfill requirements, and you're also going to be preparing for pre-med. Now, just speaking from experience, so I was at UCLA and I was with a student and he was doing classics, so ancient Greek and Roman history, and also doing pre-med. It's not as bad as it sounds, as long as you're focused and as long as you have the passion and the drive. And it makes you stand out as an applicant. It makes you more interesting. It shows that you have a genuine interest. Not that students that major in bio don't show that genuine interest, but it kind of just sets you apart from the pack and makes you a little different. And it kind of avoids that redundancy of here we go with the bio major again, here we go. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how this connects to pre-med. And there are many ways that you can connect other majors to pre-med. So for example, if you're interested in classics, ancient Greek and Roman history, well, what if you learned the history of medicine? And that inspires you to then study medicine and be a doctor and create advancements. And you're thinking about how medicine evolved over time from when you're in ancient Greece to now. It's a really interesting story, really interesting narrative, but a lot of people just tend to think that there's one road. But in reality, much like in all parts of life, there are many different roads that you can take. Now, the next slide here, I'm going to just quickly throw it back to Elyse so we can go over the pre-med pros and cons.
Yes. Oh my God, Julian, one of my favorite classes in undergrad was history of Western medicine. And it was so cool because I was taking physics at the same time. So I was learning like, oh, this is what Newton was coming up with. And like now we're working with gravity. It was really cool.
Amazing.
It's like the story behind all of it. It was really
Yeah.
neat. So yes. I also know somebody that was a philosophy major, and then, they stressed their interest in bioethics and medical ethics on their pre-med application. So absolutely.
Amazing.
Okay, let's talk about choosing an undergraduate program. We had a question come in before the webinar about what are the best schools for pre-med. And look, a lot of them are exactly the schools you would think, right? The Ivies are very high. The Ivy adjacent schools are very high. However, it's not, if you do not get into one of those schools, that is, or you can't afford to go to one of those schools, that is not the end all be all. So I wanted to compare two pre-med programs. One is Northwestern It is, it's renowned. It's one of the best pre-med programs in the country. They have a 90% acceptance rate of their graduates to medical schools. You have a plethora of research opportunities. They brag about how many undergraduate research grants they provide. Something that several schools have been doing lately is having a dedicated pre-health office. That is something that they have started in the last 5 years. Um, Cons to Northwestern. If they're on the quarter system, which is a fancy word. They're slightly longer trimesters. They're 12-week quarters, which is shorter than your 18-week semester. So all of your STEM classes are accelerated. That semester is crammed into a quarter. And so you have to do additional work. Also, Northwestern curves to a B minus, so it's harder to have a really high math and science GPA. You're coming from a good school, but your GPA is going to look a little bit lower than your counterparts at other institutions. The like the trick at Northwestern was if you were pre-med but you weren't majoring in a science, you can take organic chemistry at Harvard and it's an easy A. Like this is the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? So pros and cons, right? I want to look at the University of Alabama, which does not have those same kinds of accolades. However, they will give merit scholarships. They have a dedicated, excellent honors college. So if you get into that and you're offered a merit scholarship, something to think about. They recently started their inaugural class. I think it's very small. The McCullough Institute, which is a dedicated institute only for pre-med. They are boasting 100% acceptance rate of their McCullough Institute. So you do get that mentorship and handholding. They also have undergrad research funding. And then personality of the school. It is, they really stress service. So there is, in addition to the research funding, there's also pushes to go volunteer at some of the local clinics for underserved populations. So there's different personalities at the school. It might be, if you're offered a merit scholarship to a place like the University of Alabama, it might be a great way for you to stand out, right? Where at Northwestern, you might be in the middle of the pack. You'll probably still get into medical school. But you will feel like you're in the middle of the pack. Depends which experience you want. Also, if you are one of those MD PhD kids and you're like, yeah, I want to go where the research is. I'm like, totally. Yeah. Totally. Cool. Sorry. I don't know where that came from. Good. Julian, anything else to add on that slide before we move on?
Yeah, I think when you think about it, when you're gunning for these undergraduate programs like Harvard and Stanford, I mean, yes, they're amazing and they're incredible, but when you really think about it, like once you get there, there's going to be so much competition. It's going to be so hard to stand out, kind of like what Elyse was just saying. It can be really difficult to really be that one person from the pack that really catches somebody's eye. So like sometimes going and thinking about these schools that are lesser known and people look at them and they're like, I'm not going to that school. It's like, well, you never really know until you actually look into it. Like, for example, Case Western, I had a student who was just admitted there and she really wanted to go to the Ivy Leagues, but she was super, super competitive in high school. And like the Ivy Leagues were not the most friendly to her. And she ended up getting into Case Western and they offered her like her first 2 years completely paid for. I mean, when you think about it in the long run, undergrad plus med school is expensive. And why would you not go somewhere where somebody is going to just like either pay you? Sometimes schools will give you so much aid that like you'll be paid to go to these schools, or where you can just go for free and you can have less competition. Not that it's not going to be, challenging, but it's going to probably be less competitive and give you more of a chance to stand out and kind of get a better sense of understanding who you are as opposed to always being in this competitive environment. And also you might find out that these schools with like these smaller name schools have a lot more to give you and to support you. They might give you more research opportunities. They might give you some more like funding for whatever you want. There are really amazing things that these small schools have So don't write them off your list just yet. Now, the next thing I'm going to jump into are the combined undergraduate and medical degree programs. So maybe you're a student who is an underclassman right now and you're like, you know what? Absolutely, yes. I am so ready to be in school for 17 years. Like, I'm ready for it. I want to do this. Or, you know, maybe you're just ready to go with one of the other routes. But what I want to jump into now is when you're a senior, when you're applying to college, you do have some different options that are actually really interesting and really, really helpful and beneficial for you. So they're called the BSMD or BAMD or BADO programs. And some of you might have heard about them before, but basically what they are is they kind of combine, they're a program that combines your undergraduate education and medical school all into one program. So essentially, as a senior, you are a high school senior, you're applying to undergrad and med school at the same time, all at once. And if you're one of the lucky few, and yes, unfortunately it is few, that get admitted, you will be admitted to your undergraduate school plus medical school all at once, which is fabulous and amazing. However, one thing to note is that when you're admitted to that medical school, it is conditional. And by conditional, I mean that that offer is only valid as long as you meet the specific requirements of the med school or program that you're in. So these things are usually noted on the school's website, but some of those conditional acceptances, what they mean is like you need to get or maintain a specific GPA in college, like a 3.9 or a 3.6, whatever it might be. It might be completing a specific set of courses. So there are specific requirements. So like, yes, it is accepted into medical school, but you really have to make sure that you are meeting all of the requirements. Now, the programs can be about 6, 7, or 8 years. So when you break it down, it's about 3 or 4 years for your bachelor's degree, and then 4 years for medical school. Now, this probably to a lot of people sounds very enticing, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I totally want to do this. I am absolutely for you doing it, but just know that it is extremely selective, like very, very selective. As you can see here, I put in the acceptance rates for a few of the BSMD programs. So Baylor University's Baylor to Baylor medical program, only 6 spots. Wow, that is not a lot out of the thousands and thousands of people that apply. Brown's PLMU program, a 2.5% acceptance rate. Case Western, about 1%. And to put it in perspective, Harvard's acceptance rate is about 4 to 5%. UCLA, about 9%. So these are even more selective than the most selective universities out there. But these programs really are perfect for students that are 100% certain, without a doubt, like absolutely certain that a career in medicine is right for them. So if that's you, you might want to think about doing these programs or applying to these programs because it does make things a lot easier for you, but you really have to make that desire evident in your applications. So some of the requirements for these programs, they really differ by each program and school, but generally what you're looking at is they want you to be in the top of your class ranking, so in the top 5 or 10%, minimum GPA of 3.5 to 4.0. It depends on the school. You don't really want to have a 3.5. Ideally, you want to have a 4.0 to be competitive. The SAT and ACT, unfortunately, it is part of the decision. I wish it weren't, but alas, here we are. So they really want you to have about a 1430 to a 1600. A 1430 is what from my research, I've seen online for some schools that have those. Again, they're not schools that you're really going to know. They're in odd areas, different areas, should I say, Alabama, Connecticut, and so forth. But the other one is about a 32 to a 36 on the ACT. They really also want to see that extensive demonstrated interest. And then there are additional application materials including essays and interviews. Now, one more thing to note about these programs, these specialized programs, is that in some instances, there are schools that only admit students like from in-state. So that would be like University of Connecticut. They give preference to in-state residents. But there are schools like University of New Mexico that they only admit students from the state. So when you're looking into the programs, you really have to look into the specific requirements. The only program that's BSMD in California is, I believe, UC Merced, but it's only for residents of the San Joaquin Valley. So not much really for California residents. Apologies about that. Now, I just wanted to really kind of hit home the differences and what some schools might be requiring. So you have Baylor University versus University of Connecticut. So for Baylor, what they're looking for is ranking in the top 5% of their high school or graduating class, or a 3.7 GPA on a 4.0 scale. Typically a 1430 or above on the SAT, or a 32 or above on the ACT, and then US citizen or permanent resident. Now, again, the minimums that you see here, you really don't want to be in that range. You want to be on the higher end. So like if it's a 3.7, maybe you'd get in, but they really are going to be looking probably more intensely at the students with the 4.0s. Same thing with the SAT. If you have a 1430, it means you're eligible to apply, but realistically, the applicants that they're probably taking into consideration have like 1460, 70, 80, or I'm sorry, like 1490 and probably above. Now, University of Connecticut is you need to have an overall GPA of 3.5. Again, you want to be on the higher end. You're going to have a supplemental application, an optional resume, the 2 letters of recommendation highlighting the applicant's interest in medicine, and then an interview with the special program in medicine committee. Note, no SAT requirement. There are some BSMD programs that actually have optional for the SAT. So it's good that there are some schools that are test optional, but having that exam or having the SAT will probably make you appeal a lot better or look a lot better to the schools. Now, so what are the pros of doing the BSMD programs? So I think first and foremost, guaranteed admission to medical school. Like that's a given. You're not going to have to worry about that. So not worrying about that means less stress, right? It also means less uncertainty. So like a lot of times when there are individuals who are applying, doing the MCAT, thinking about med school, it's like an extra piece of stress that they have to worry about. Like, great, now that I finished my undergrad, now I have to apply to another program. But if you're in the BSMD and you're admitted, you're good to go. You're set. You're awesome. You don't have to worry about that extra application. You also can probably save a year from your education. So it kind of tries to condense everything, make you finish a lot more quickly. So I think those would be the pros. Realistically, like the main thing is not having to worry about having that extra application and that extra stress. It's not to say that the BSMD programs aren't going to be stressful, because I promise you they will be, but you at least won't have to do have another arduous application process. So yay for that. The cons, so there are a lot of things that, I think about the BSMD programs. I think they're amazing, but I think that there are downsides to them. There are instances where it's like, I feel like you do get less of a life experience. You're losing a year of undergrad. You're really not getting that full undergraduate experience. In some instances, you have to kind of like follow a very specific path that they want you to do. And that kind of takes away your freedom to explore and learn and see and experience new things. And another thing I always think about is like, yes, there are some students who think they know what they want to do as seniors and they'll get admitted to programs. But what happens when you get admitted and you realize, you know what, like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if I want to be a doctor. I thought I did, but now I don't. And then the other thing is like, well, what if you're at a school and you're locked into 8 years there, but then you're like, I don't know if I like this school. I don't know if I like really envision myself here for the next 8 years. Well, you kind of have to be there now. So you have to think like, do I really want to lock myself into something, an 8 year kind of situation? There is that possibility of failing out. It is really challenging. It's stressful. It requires you to really know yourself. And then again, that application process is extremely long and intense. Now, what I've added here, just to kind of show you what the essay examples are going to look like. So in addition to your UC application essays, in addition to your common application main essay, any other supplemental essays, you get to write more essays. Yay! So two here, briefly share the influences on your decision to pursue the field of medicine, including shadowing or other medical related activities. And then there's please indicate why you're interested in your chosen profession. How do you see yourself being particularly suited to this field? What events and or experiences have led you to your choice? So they're really trying to find, why do you want to do medicine? Why do you want to do this? What's the reason? Convince them. This is going to be your opportunity and your chance to convince them, like, this is what I need to do. And you need to differentiate yourself from everybody else who's going to be like, I want to do medicine because I love helping people. Okay, that's good. I'm glad that I hope that you want to help people as a doctor, but you need to be specific and you really need to hit it home that like, this is the thing, the career for me. And like, I know that I will not be dropping out or doing anything else crazy like that of these amazing programs. Now, this is just a sample student. It's a sample of a student that was accepted to Berkeley. As you can see, a crazy amount of AP exams. They were also very involved. And then you also have in their senior year, more APs, 5s and 4s. We have leadership. We have varsity track and field, community theater, good SAT score. Also did a summer program. So as you can see, for the more competitive schools, you have to show that academic rigor, but you also have to show that you're well-rounded in many other areas. Now, just jumping into some advice from some current med students, try to do something interesting in college that makes you stand out in your applications. Remember what we were just talking about a few slides ago? That isn't just typical pre-med stuff. Double major in a non-science topic. Make connections with professors early and build longitudinal relationships for research and letters of recommendation. Ultimately, just go into college committed to working super hard. It's doable if you do things you enjoy and are passionate about. And I second that, Katie Frank.
Oh,
amazing. Yes.
Quick update with Katie Frank. She got into her top choice residency. She'll be starting dermatology. So it was
Amazing.
super competitive. She worked really hard and she got into it. So yay, Katie.
Congratulations, Katie. Yay. Now, jumping into a few things from what students wish they knew. It's okay not to have a 4.0. It's okay to fail. It's more important to work hard and be proud of your effort than it is to simply have good grades. Path to medicine doesn't have to be a straight line. It's better to be non-traditional. There that is again. When I'm considering med students for a psychiatric residency, I'm much more interested in the students that majored in something unique in undergrad. Oh, look at that quote, everybody. Women's studies, political science, philosophy. Those are the people that are able to connect with our patients on deeper, more meaningful levels. Aha, there it is, everybody, the quote that we were looking for. Now, some things that I wanted to add in, kind of like about what I wish I'd known. It's not always going to be a straight path. There are going to be times when you fail. There are going to be times when you experience things where you're like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I can even do this anymore. One of my very good friends, her best friend, did the med school route, did the MCAT, applied to med school, did not get in anywhere. And she was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Like, I don't even know what to do. Had to take a year off, had to figure her life out, and she did everything right. She got a good score. She had good opportunities that she was involved in, had to kind of stop for a while. And then I believe it was like a year or so later, applied again. And then she got into a school. It wasn't the best one, but she was like, you know what? It's not my top choice, but I'm going to do it. She is now a really successful, like, pediatric like heart surgeon at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. So even though you might hit bumps in the road, you can still make it to that end goal. My best friend graduated with me. I'm not going to say when I graduated, but it was a while back. And we graduated college like around the same time. And she still like was really interested in doing med school. She is now, right now, in her second year at med school. She's still on the path. She's still working hard towards it because she didn't want to give up. There were some things that happened where she needed to pause, but she's still going for it. And sometimes you change your mind. I have one of my other best friends from college. She was I think, a psychology major. And in her senior year, she decided, you know what? I want to do nursing. And so she graduated from UCLA and then went to nursing school, had to apply and go to nursing school. She was a traveling nurse for a few years, and now she's back in school to be a nurse esthetician. So, or anesthesiologist, I apologize. So it just goes to show you that sometimes it takes a while to get to your goals, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. Now, I am going to pass this next slide on to Elyse.
Great. Yeah. And it's funny that you said all those twisting, both people on those slides, both of them had twisting and winding roads. If we want to in the Q&A, we can go tell you more about our friends. Great. So what can you be doing right now as high schoolers? We have emphasized the importance of knowing your mind, knowing that this is something that you want to do, knowing that you want to be a doctor versus or a DO versus a PA. So what can you do to do that? So there's a couple things. There are research programs for high schoolers. There are also volunteer options in hospitals getting that experience, even if it's just picking up trash. Somebody that I knew that got into one of those BSMD programs spent a year picking up trash in the ER, and he was in the environment. He was getting to see what was going on, talk to doctors, getting some mentorship, and he knew after that this was an environment that he wanted to be in. There are medical internships for high schoolers at Stanford, at the CDC. Julian and our counseling staff, if you're interested, can help you find these opportunities. Also, do you know a doctor? Do you have a friend whose dad or a mom is a doctor? Shadow them for a day, a summer. See if you can volunteer for them. You could get certified to become a junior EMT. You could also do things that are adjacent, like volunteering for the Red Cross. Anything in that sphere is really helpful. But we want to you want to give yourself the opportunity to know that it's an environment that you care about, that you feel good in, that these are the types of people that you want to work with, and then once you know that, start demonstrating that passion.
And then these are just the final questions to ask yourself just before we end. What's important to me? What kind of workday do I want to have? Do I want to have 12-hour shifts where I'm, working all day and exhausted? Do I want to have an 8-hour workday? What do I want? Why do I want to be a doctor instead of a PA and POT? What interests me? What lights me up? What makes me wake up every day and say, like, I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to be, helping or serving in whatever type way. So now is the time to start asking yourself those questions. And look, if you don't know right now, that's okay. You don't have to know right now. Nobody said that you have to know right at this very moment, but it is a really good time to start thinking about it. It's a good time to start thinking about where you want to be in the next 10, 15 years, who you want to be, why you want to be that person. And we here at Great Expectations can help you answer those questions. So we are now going to open up this Q&A for any questions that anybody has. It's been so wonderful giving you guys advice. I hope that everybody learned a few things, one thing, two things, 20 things from today's presentation. We have our QR code if you wanted to sign up for a complimentary 30-minute consultation. We also have our specific Pally High offerings. The website is there. Feel free to take a screenshot, scan the code, and now we are ready for the Q&A for any questions.
Yay! And let us know if you learned anything in the chat.
Yes.
Thank you, Elyse and Julian. That was a fantastic presentation. And I think you guys did a fantastic job of answering a lot of the pre-submitted questions. So thank you for that. I think some of the ones that might still require answers are, what does it take and what are good alternatives specifically related to the future of AI?
Oh yes, right. So I've been talking to people recently about this, because there was that scare that doctors are going to be replaced by AI, therapists and psychologists are going to be replaced by AI. And so there have been multiple cases now where the different AI bots have given incorrect advice or incorrect counsel. So it's not going to replace doctors. Like anything else, it's going to be a tool. So people that will likely advance will know how to use AI and use it well, as a tool, just like those of us that when the internet was new, we had Wikipedia. What was it reliable? Was it not? You got to go down to the sources, right? So knowing how to use AI is going to be key, but medicine is not going to be replaced by AI anytime soon. And in fact, the mental health fields, psychiatry and psychology are really, really hot and hiring right now.
Thank you. That is, yeah, I know AI is always a concern. Okay, our next question is, what if my GPA is average, but I still want to be a doctor?
What if your GPA is average and you still want to be a doctor? Okay, so I'm assuming you're a high school student. If you're a high school student and you have an average GPA and you still want to be a doctor, that's wonderful. The great news is it's early enough that you can work on turning that around. So, Julian, jump in when you want, but I would definitely recommend making sure your math and science classes going forward that you score as high as you can. And if you need to get extra tutoring, stay after school. If you need to meet with us, I specialize in kids that have like math anxiety disorders. So it's early enough to turn that around. If you are a college undergraduate, welcome. We're so happy you're here and you still want to be a doctor. That's okay. There are things you can do. Again, scoring as highly as you can in the classes going forward, score as high as you can on the MCAT, and then do some excellent volunteer work. One of those quotes in the earlier on the earlier slides, that Alex Pavadi, who is now head in the ER, he took a break halfway through college and worked as an EMT for 2 years because he was like, I think I want to do this, but I don't know if I want, like, it's too overwhelming in school right now. And then he was able to come back, finish out his schooling. And those 2 years of EMT really helped his medical school applications. And now he's the head of his department. So there's always ways to turn it around, but I would say if it's a struggle, if it's a struggle, that's one thing. If it's a struggle that you're passionate about fixing, then great. If it's a struggle and you have to struggle to get yourself interested in the subjects, or it feels like pulling teeth, and every time you try to study for the things that you need to be studying for your pre-med stuff, and you find yourself daydreaming about other things, that's a big red flag that this might not be the profession for you. And that is okay. There are other valid things to do with your life. There are other ways to help people. There are other valid callings.
And one more thing, if you are that high schooler who has an average GPA, remember, if you are interested in medicine, pre-med is not a major. Pre-med is the pathway. So if you are, you don't have the strongest GPA, the goal is to get into an undergraduate program. Maybe it's not something as competitive as LA or Berkeley. Maybe it's something more along the lines of, I don't know, UC Riverside or UC Merced. That's where you start preparing and getting a stronger GPA to be a strong candidate for medical school. It's really like when you think about it, when you're applying to med school, the med school isn't looking at your high school grades. They're looking at what you did in college. So that's really the time to shine. And luckily, in colleges, they give so many resources to students, tutoring, academic advising, counseling, peer counseling. There are so many ways to improve and, do as well as your peers. So just remember your high school GPA, all you need to do now is like have the passion, get into a school that you want to be at, and then you can still work towards those goals of getting into med school. Just because you have a GPA, an average GPA, doesn't mean that you're not good enough to get into medical school.
Thank you guys. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And this one is going to be, what are the best colleges to attend in order to get into med school?
Um, there, we were gonna have this as a slide, and then we thought these were sort of just such like exactly what you would expect. The quote unquote best colleges are predominantly the Ivies, and then I would call them the Ivy adjacents. Your U Chicago, Emory, Tulane, Berkeley. But as we said before, state schools will often have honors colleges. Small liberal arts colleges will have really in-depth mentorship. So they might, because they're smaller and they have fewer pre-med students, they may not rank in those top 20 college lists because they just don't have as many students applying to med school. But that doesn't mean that they have bad programs. Or that they won't support you. So I really would, Julian, yeah, I would really find the college that fits you and fits your needs and then see how they can support you as a pre-med. Would you agree with that, Julian?
100%, yes. And like a lot of people try to figure out like which schools are the best feeder schools. It's hard to find that data, to be honest, but I do know, like, for example, like University of Pittsburgh, okay, a lot of people think about that school and they're like, oh, it's not a top tier school. Okay, well, they still have some pretty good like acceptance rates into their med school, and Pitt is amazing, their med school is amazing. So like again, these smaller name schools, don't write them off. It's all about what you do at the school. It's about the opportunities that you take, because like if you just sit there and get good grades in your classes but you don't do anything else, well, okay, so like why should I admit you over the other student who went to like, I don't know, University of Arizona, and they were volunteering at a hospital and they were doing stuff with a hospice center and researching like something in neuroscience, and they really had this strong passion. So like there's a difference, it's about taking opportunities, doing well, as opposed to just being at a really good school, doing well, and then doing nothing else. So it's all about just like taking advantage of the opportunities and making the most of what you have. That's my advice.
I
Thank
love
you.
that.
And I know I said that was our last question, but we have one more I'm going to try to get in right before the buzzer. So thank you, Julie. Please.
Okay.
Okay, our last question is, does community college affect my image in the med school application? If or I am doing a year's worth of credits for the rest of my junior and senior year of high school.
Uh, I would consider that if you are doing that and then you transfer to whatever college, I would make sure that you take a few extra STEM classes to show that you can maintain excellent academic success at that level. So for example, if you took your biology course at the community college, then I would make sure you take biochem when you transfer to the university, and I would encourage you to work as hard as you can to get, if you can an A, at least a B plus, for things like that. It sounds like you wouldn't be completing all of your pre-med coursework, so I would make sure that you do well in the pre-med coursework that you complete when you apply to university. Anything to add, Julian?
No, I think honestly, like if you are taking those prerequisites, just make sure that you're doing well in them
Yeah.
because community college courses, anything college level, they do follow you everywhere you go. Remember that. If
So
you're
it
in,
could be a great way to get an easy A if you're at
yes,
community college, right? And a great way to boost your scores.
yeah. But just remember, like when you're at a community college, those courses, those grades follow you. So if you get like a withdraw, if you get a D, all that stuff has to be reported. So make sure that you're doing well in those courses.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will be sending out a recap email tomorrow with a link to the recording, and all of our information is up on the screen right now in case you have any other questions or some of them come to you while you're while you're thinking about the webinar later tonight. We are here for you. Elyse and Julian, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.